Hello guys, welcome to the channel. My name is Tyson. Thanks for stopping by. These are my thoughts of the new Yeti 160e e-bike. If you like what you see here, please hit the like button, subscribe, maybe share the video with somebody else who has a 160 or another e-bike, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. Let's get rolling. I live in Idaho. We've got a plethora of different terrain. Locally here where I live, however, we have a mix of mostly single track that's pretty smooth, I would say blue, flowy trails with some tech here and there. We do have an occasional black diamond type trail that's got some chunk or some technical stuff in there, but not too much. But most of it's very high speed. So with that, I've had several bikes this past year. I've had an opportunity to ride the SB115, which I own. I've owned the SB130 Lunch Ride. I've owned the Yeti SB150. I've also owned the Santa Cruz Nomad, the Santa Cruz 5010, the Bronson, and gosh, a few treks in my day. So I've got some experience riding several different bikes. But again, by no means am I any sort of authority or anything beyond just an amateur who loves to ride here. So let's get to what you're here for. The Yeti 160e, Yeti's first e-bike. We all know that, you've seen the reviews, but I just wanted to give you an average guy's thoughts who likes to ride 3 to 4 times a week. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm 185 pounds with my gear on. I'm 6'1" and I ride a large. So there's your benchmark there. You may fall on either end of that, or you might be in the same setup as I am. Couple things that I want to start out with. I want to go over the pros of the bikes, what I loved, what was just spot on for me, everything that Yeti nailed. On the flip side of that coin, I want to go over the cons, what I didn't like, what I noticed that was just not right, didn't feel right, or was missing from the bike. I want to talk about some observations that I had during the last 6 months that I've owned the bike, things that I've noticed that I want to pass on to you. I want to end with the conclusions on what I really feel about the bike. So let's jump right in. What did I like about the bike, the pros? Well, as you may have seen in other reviews, what I noticed up front was it was so very similar geometry-wise to my SB150. I felt right at home right when I got on it. But what I really didn't understand was how stable the bike was at speed. Now, you may have heard this on other channels. At speed, stability, it's hard to quantify. You could be in a straight line feeling stable, or you could be mashing through a rock garden stable. This thing is absolutely stable through the roughest terrain that I can put it through, or at least what I have here locally. We're talking stable at speeds that are 35 to 45, even faster miles per hour. This thing loves to descend when you have the right pitch for the descent. Couple things that I want to talk about too that I liked was the balance of the bike. It really felt balanced. I never felt like I was having to ride really high up on the front of the bars, or I never felt like I really had to hang off the back end to keep it under control. I felt neutral. There was a slight change that I made in body position and bar position that brought me slightly forward. And what I found as the slight movement forward and dropping my lever slightly, I was able to control the front end and turn a lot harder and a lot faster into corners. So that was my experience with that. The anti-squat on this bike. Everybody knows who's ridden a Yeti that the SwitchFinity has been very unique ever since its existence. The SIXFINITY 6-bar link was my first experience, just like everybody else's on it, and I didn't know what to think. I thought it might have been a little heavy or it might have been slow. Boy, was I wrong. Yeti tuned that linkage to act as good, if not better, for the weight of that bike than my SB150. It's unbelievable how that bike handles without touching the climb switch on the X2 shock. Another thing that I loved is I hear a lot online about the brakes. Nobody liked the brakes, the code RSCs. A lot of people just didn't like them. They didn't like the modulation of the power. I don't know why. I have not had a single issue. Maybe it's because I'm a 180 pound, 185 pound rider, but I feel like those Code RSCs, the exact same ones that I had on my SB150, were phenomenal. I don't think I'm going to change them. I don't think they need to be changed. Fox did a great job with the 38. That's a fantastic fork, tuned perfectly for the bike. No complaints there. Love it. That wraps it up for the pros, what I really liked about the bike. There's more nuances that I really liked about the bike, but again, if you can get a chance to ride one, I highly recommend it. Let's talk about the cons, things that I didn't like. Man, this thing is expensive. You hear that on every single YouTube review. This thing is stupid expensive. Something to be said that you don't need to spend that much money on a bike to have that much fun, and I 100% agree. There are several bikes out there, I won't name names, but that I've seen or that I've ridden that are almost half the price and almost just as fun. So man, the price is nutty in my mind, but they're all moving that way. I guess it's the times we live in. The Shimano XT drivetrain. Now, it's not that I'm throwing shade on Shimano. I think it was my bike specifically, but when I got the bike, it just never shifted right. We went back and forth. We adjusted the limits, the B tension. We couldn't get it to shift right. We ended up stripping it out. The cable, put a new cable in. That didn't work. Finally, we did a new cable and housing, and what we found is when it came from the factory, it kinked the cable. It kinked the housing, which made the cable stick. Once we ripped that out after about a month and a half of trying to chase it down, everything was fine from that point on. So no complaints after that, but if you do get into a 160, just take that advice. That motor is a fantastic motor. The only thing that I've noticed is what everybody else has said is just the slight rattle. It'll rattle here and there, and maybe I'll throw up a clip of the rattle if you can actually hear it, but you do notice it. The battery charge cover is a little piece of plastic that does not want to close. Might be just my bike, you may have a similar situation, but for some reason, whenever I open it up, I can put the charger in. When I unplug the charger, I can't get the thing to snap back on correctly. I have to use two hands to kind of wiggle it in there until I get a tight seal. That concerns me a little bit because where that charger is slightly low. And in the springtime here in Idaho, we're doing a lot of creek crossings or we're going through a lot of water or mud. My fear is that at some point we're going to have some ingress of water or moisture in there. I don't know if that's a warranty issue or if there's a fix for that, but time will tell. I'll keep you posted if I have any issues with that. Next thing along with that is the charge time. Now, I've got the basic charger for the 160E, the one that came with it. Now, I believe there's a faster charger, but man, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm seeing charge times in excess of 7, 8, 9 hours from empty. And that's less than ideal if you would like to ride maybe 2 rides in a day. It can be a little bit of a hindrance. Another thing that I didn't like is I just use a standard bottle and I've got a side mount bottle cage. And when I slide my bottle into the cage, it is so tight along the top tube that every once in a while, if I'm not paying attention, it'll smack the top tube. Now, that's petty. That's a cosmetic issue, but be aware that if you are using a side mount water bottle cage, when you slide your water bottle in, it will have a tendency to tap the top of the top tube until it's seated all the way in there. Simple fix, wrap your bike or put a little strip of protective tape right where that bottle dives in. A couple of things that I'm neutral about on the bike. I've heard some reviewers say that it's maybe a little heavy or it's not slack enough. I'm really neutral on that. I don't feel that it makes the bike any slower. I don't feel like I feel the weight so much, whether it be a half pound or a pound over some other bikes. So it's something I thought I'd let you know. What would I change? I would change for sure the drivetrain. I was able to get mine working, but I sit back and I think, man, for a $13,000 bike, why would I have to change the drivetrain? I don't know if the XT that was put on my bike, derailleur that is, was just slightly out of quality control, or I don't know, something's not right with the bike. And I've had issues with it since I've owned it. So there's a good chance that that thing may go back into warranty, or I may rip it off and throw maybe X01 Axis or another drivetrain. I don't know. We'll see. It just needs to be a little bit better for that amount of money. Another thing that I would change is tire inserts. I'll show a video here in just a second of me going over a rock, and the rock completely demolishes my front tire and dings my front wheel. Maybe this is a given for every e-bike at this weight, but I do recommend throwing at least some sort of tire inserts in there, whether it be the full Cushcore Pros or the Cushcore XCs. So think about that. Observations. A couple things that I've noticed during my time with the bike. Right off the bat, the headset started creaking. That was simple to fix. Maybe my second or third ride, as everything kind of settles in, it got a little loose, it started to creak a little bit. I thought it was just a trail side fix, just tighten everything down, boom, good to go. Nope, that wasn't the case. The simple fix was ripping the front fork off and making sure that everything still had grease in there. What I noticed was there was just one part of my headset in the Cane Creek upper part of the headset where there was a little grease that wasn't all the way around the ring. Threw a little grease in there, haven't had the issue since. So easy fix. Ride wrap that thing. If you're going to spend that much money on it, spend the extra $100 to ride wrap it. Little tip, if you are going to ride wrap it and you have a stand, take the battery out, makes the frame a lot lighter, a little easier to manipulate on the stand. So just food for thought there. Another observation I had was the bottom bracket height. I guess not technically a bottom bracket, but the motor height is a little low. It's slung low. So there are a few times that I've gone over obstacles, and man, I hit the bottom skid plate on that thing more times than I like. I'm starting to learn the bike a little bit more, having to pull up on the rear end of the bike, but do understand that the bike motor is pretty low, and you will bash it on rocks if you ride any sort of technical terrain. Another thing that I noticed is I'm typically at my weight and where I live and my output getting between 4,500 and 5,500 feet of climbing on a single battery. The mileage will depend on how much of that is uphill and downhill. Typically, I'll land anywhere between 35 and 45 miles. I can maybe stretch it beyond 45 if I'm in eco in the battery save mode, but that's typically what I'm seeing. 4,500 to 5,500 feet, 35 to 45 miles per charge. Another observation that I had is I noticed because of the bike stability that I am taking far more risks at speed than typical bikes. And I don't know if that's because I'm more confident that the bike is planted. I'm more confident in what the bike's going to do in a turn or in the air. But I did notice that I am slightly faster and taking more risk because I'm relying on what the bike can do to save me. Now, that may be a bad idea, but I haven't crashed yet, knock on wood, but time will tell. So be aware, once you get comfortable, don't get too comfortable. Just know that you're doing things a few miles an hour faster maybe than your typical analog bike, and that could get you into trouble. Final thoughts. What do I think about the bike? I'm honest with you in saying that I really do like the bike. I think it is so much fun. If I look back at how many times I've ridden my other bikes compared to my 160, it's almost embarrassing. Just like everybody says, oh, you're going to get an e-bike and you're never going to want to ride your other bikes. I wouldn't say that's completely true. However, there is some truth to that. It is a lot of fun when you can go smash double the mileage in an hour and a half on a lunch break than you would on your typical analog bike. But that being said, I still have an analog bike in the garage and I still love to use it. And am I going to take this 160E on every ride that I go on, whether it be a shuttle ride or if I'm at the park or if I'm doing lift service? Probably not. I'll probably just grab my analog bike because it is lighter, it is more flickable, it is fun. But that being said, I'm riding that 160 over 50% of the time. And if you're a person that thinks that you're not going to do that, good luck. I think that this bike is for somebody who really likes to be aggressive. I don't think it's necessary for somebody who really likes to be aggressive. But if you like Yeti, if you like that style of bike, if you like the Switch Infinity, then you're going to love the SIXFINITY. But knowing that, it's expensive. I don't think that this bike or any bike should cost $13,000 to $15,000 to $16,000 to $17,000 to have this much fun. I believe that truly you could have this much fun on a bike at maybe less than half the cost. Even if it's an alloy bike, it doesn't matter. You've got a motor. And if you're going downhill, that little extra weight that you may have on an alloy bike might be a little bit better for you. So that being said, overall, I give the bike a 9 out of 10 because of how I ride it. I love the bike. Now, if you guys have a 160, I want to know what you think. I want to know if you've had the same thoughts, if you've had the same observations, if you've had the same conclusion on the bike, because I know that there's a lot of them zipping through the bike shop, and I know that there's a lot of people getting their hands on them. Not everybody's had the same experience. Or if you've got another bike, if you've got another e-bike that you absolutely love, that maybe you've ridden the 160 or your e-bike is something that you prefer more. Tell me why. I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious. I've only ridden just a few other e-bikes and I'm always open to try more. So with that, thanks for stopping by, guys. I appreciate the time and sorry it took me this long to get this out to you. Enjoy your day.